What is something that everyone looks stupid doing? Story 1. Waiting to grab your dog's poop. I walk my dog at the Riverford Park like 300 yards down the street from my apartment. They have poop bag dispensers at the park, so sometimes I forget to bring one from home. The absolute worst is when my dog decides she needs to go before we get to the park and I can get a bag. I have to resist the urge to look around at anyone who might have seen it and say, "Don't worry, I'm going to come back and pick it up." I just don't have a bag yet because they're at the park and she usually does it at the park. In other instances, I make such a big ol' show, patting all my pockets, rifling through my bag, making a couple of exasperated expressions, and then carefully picking out a twig or something and exaggeratingly sticking it in the ground to mark the spot. I then back away a few steps while I stare at it just to show that I've memorized the spot. Then hesitate, do a tiny, decisive little nod to myself, and walk in a big hurry to wherever the nearest bags are. Then keep the bag open around my hand for whatever distance it takes to get me back. I did not realize that I'd do this until you just got me analyzing myself. It's the same act every time. How many other times am I being a performative phony in public and not consciously realizing it? The biggest thing people do that looks stupid is knowing they are doing something stupid and trying to clumsily cover it up by making it look cool. If you're doing something that looks daft, there really isn't a graceful way to do it. Just go do it and smile as if no one's looking, because usually they aren't anyway. Dog walkers can all agree that this is one of the most awkward parts of the job. Maybe bring a poop bag next time? Story 2. When you're walking in the opposite direction you're supposed to go and have to do a sudden 180 turn. Back then, I would get my phone out and pretend that someone was meeting me and they'd given me the wrong location. Then I'll sigh, shake my head, and then turn the other way. Or I'd go with the good old pocket slap and act like I forgot something. People always say that no one is paying attention and no one cares. I was raised by a person who notices and comments on everyone. Driving by an overweight person walking or jogging, she would make judgmental comments. She sees a person going in the wrong direction and turns around, judgmental comments. She sees a person trip, you best believe there will be comments. She is likely the reason I had to work extra hard to get over my anxiety that people are always watching and commenting. For years, this has been my view of the world. However, my anxiety improved when I stopped doing the stuff I usually do. I forced myself to just turn around in situations like this or other similar situations, and I stopped caring as much as before. Just turn around and that's it. Plus, this only happens to me when I'm in a relatively big city and don't know some streets. And the truth is, people are just minding their own business. They usually don't even notice. And as they've said, what if they do? They'll most likely forget in a minute, and even if they don't, who cares? Like, OMG, I just saw a guy changing directions in the street. It literally feels like the most naive thing ever. They're a total stranger who you might never see again, and it surely is not relevant for them to remember your face for the rest of their lives. This is not so awkward compared to almost bumping into someone and then sidestepping in the same direction they're going. Story 3. We all look a bit silly when we confidently walk into a glass door we thought was open. Our brain assumes it's open until reality hits us. It's happened to the best of us, and it's always a good laugh afterward. For example, there's a woman I know who has a 6-inch scar starting at her shoulder and going down her arm. She said when she was a kid, her parents were viewing a home to rent, and she and her brother were chasing each other around the place. Bam! She ran into the sliding door. Yes, they did end up renting it. Another was when I was 12, my brother was 10, and mom had just cleaned the sliding glass door into the backyard. She told my brother, "Go get your sister, dinner is ready." He goes running and slams into the clean, now invisible glass door. After 7 hours in the ER and 212 stitches later, mom, dad, and brother came home. His face and arms were totally clear, but his legs were a mess. I'll have to give him a call tonight. I had totally forgotten about it. I also can't forget when, while visiting a friend, their 14-year-old granddaughter, who was playing chase with her little brother, ran straight through the 6x6 sliding glass door. I don't remember much about the aftermath. If I remember correctly, she was okay, just with a couple of small cuts and bruises from the fall and badly shaken. But the noise, I'll never forget that noise. Story 4. Wearing pieces that beckon wardrobe malfunctions. In NYC, a lady crossed the street and midway through, her wig blew off. Everyone stopped and she walked to the middle of the intersection, bent over to pick it up, and her dress blew over her head. Contagious laughter from everyone, even her. While I'm on the subject of wigs, I've also seen this in my hometown years ago. I was going into Walmart on a particularly windy day. The older lady was with her daughter and her wig flew right off. She chased it across the parking lot. Her daughter was laughing so hard. But to be fair, if you're going to publicly embarrass yourself, NYC is the place to do it. There's so much weird stuff always happening there that it probably wouldn't even become dinner conversation for some people. For example, I got caught in an unexpected, short but torrential rainstorm while wearing a white dress and had to ride the subway 40 blocks home. My dress was rendered nearly transparent, but somehow no one else in the train car was even wet. I must have looked miserable because an old lady told me, "Cheer up, dear. You're just giving the guys something fun to think about when they get home." I did not find her comment comforting. The same thing happened to a friend of mine who was working at a restaurant in downtown Chicago right on Michigan Ave. They would cater lunches to businesses nearby, so she was pushing a cater cart with food on it down the sidewalk when the wind took her hat off her head, and when she went to get my hat, the cart started rolling down a sidewalk ramp and she had to dash back over to catch it. She luckily caught it in time, but was dying with laughter. She had to go back to the restaurant and have someone else deliver the food. Story 5. Looking for a photo to show on your phone, but it takes forever. This is horrible. The longer it takes, the less interested the other person becomes, and the more frustrated you get trying to find it. Then, when you do find it, after all that, it just feels like a chore, and you regret doing it. Or those awkward moments when you're looking at your phone with you, waiting to see the photo or video you want to show them, and you have to scroll quickly in hopes of them not seeing something weird or inappropriate on your phone. On the flip side, I hate this whole showing people your phone thing. I make a conscious effort never to do it, even when tempted. I feel a bit like a jerk, but if that thing is not ready on your phone, I rudely deny the opportunity and just say, "Send it to me." In fact, I'd like to petition proper etiquette to send it. Yes, even when they are sitting next to you. Story 6. Trying to take off pants without removing shoes first. It usually happens when you're trying to pair a pair of heels or otherwise complicated shoes with different outfits. If I can squeeze the shoes through the pants, I absolutely will, because those little buckles and whatnot require super uncomfortable positions to clink into place, and nobody has time for that. I've also done it when I've left the house to go walk or hike with the dogs and realized it was a lot warmer outside than I thought. I loaded the dogs into the car and then ran back inside to change into shorts. Getting shorts on over shoes isn't a big deal. Getting the pants off, however, is another story. Story 7. Driving a Segway. Segways really never took off like they were supposed to. I remember the hype when they were first revealed to the world. Then nothing. One reason for that was that they originally only went the extra mile between charges. For most of us, it is just as easy to walk a mile as it is to ride around on one of those things for that short of a distance. The Segways were meant for use by warehouse workers who were on their feet all day fulfilling orders, but they weren't practical because they didn't stay charged long enough. But I will say this. I was in a museum staring at a painting and a woman was standing next to me and she looked weirdly tall. I looked up and down and she was in her 70s, affluent looking, slender, hooked up to a portable oxygen tank with a lead to her nose, and tall due to standing on a Segway. It's hard to get on a bike if you have bad health issues, and bless her heart, she wanted to get out to the museum and look at things at eye level instead of from a wheelchair, so there was a use for it. Story 8. Standing up as soon as the plane lands. Or on the opposite side, doing absolutely nothing to prepare to leave the plane, and when it's your turn, having to get all your stuff out of the seat back pocket, repack your purse, and try to get your bags out of the compartment 3 rows behind you, while 100 people behind you have to have their time wasted. As if you couldn't have seen the coming wave of people exiting the plane ahead of you and made a sensible prediction as to when that wave would reach you. Story 9. Fierce online arguments will instantly make both sides look like jerks. I've gotten into the habit of typing out my response, then deleting it and pretending I won. Sometimes I don't even pretend I won. I just realized after typing my response that the potential frustration wasn't worth my time, so I deleted it without posting. Plus, this is definitely something I learned the hard way. Arguing with people online never convinces anyone, so why do it? It just becomes grandstanding and trying to poke fun at the other person's point for karma rather than an actual discussion. I've been on here for like 10 years, and sometime in the past 7 years, I realized that all of my written communication is typed in a way that's defending myself before I make a point on social media, like work emails, texts, and stuff. You can only say so much in a couple of paragraphs in a reply, and people on the internet go straight for the worst possible scenario that no one would ever think of or mention in real life. I guess it's made me more diplomatic for work, but it's quite frankly exhausting to have to preface every single thing. I've learned a lot, but I really wish everyone would quit needing to be the smartest person in the room. Trolls have been around since the dawn of the internet era. They're like the norm now. So you've made it this far. How about hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel? It really helps me out. Story 10. Walking through a cobweb that no one else sees and then waving your arms around a lot to get rid of the cobwebs on your body, or walking through a circle of flying insects. The first time I visited my husband's hometown, we took a walk out to an old cemetery. On the way, he stopped suddenly and began dancing around, frantically slapping at the air and himself. I just stared in amazement, wondering if this was some kind of seizure. He was shooing a horsefly. Horseflies don't live where I grew up. Story 11. Jumping jacks. Some folks swear by how cool jumping jacks look. But as a gal, I think about how that'd feel with gravity giving them a rough time during every jumping jack. Same deal with running. I've got to run with my arms clamped over my chest because the alternative is just plain painful. It's a whole different ballgame, no pun intended. Dealing with these quirks really puts a spin on the whole exercise routine, making you rethink what works for different bodies. Story 12. Chasing a ping pong ball. There's nothing more dehumanizing than chasing after an erratic ping pong or beer pong ball. I was visiting my friend at a certain university. He was in a frat. I had never seen such a campus or a huge frat house. I'm very anti frat, but I wanted to see my friend. Anyway, beer pong was played and I was doing well. Everyone seemed nice. At some point, my ball went behind a radiator and I went to get it when it fell by slamming down onto the carpet at terminal velocity, landing on my knees in ripped jeans. That rug burn took literally a month to heal. Back to the subject. The trick is to stroll around the direction it's traveling in, and when the ball settles into a roll, nonchalantly pick it up. Unless you chase ping pong balls while moonwalking, then it looks awesome. Story 13. Standing or sitting awkwardly while everyone sings happy birthday to you. If you want to know a solution, here's one from personal experience. My son covers his ears and cries, so we stopped singing it for him when he was younger and just never started it back up. Another time was during my friend's 25th birthday, when his request not to sing fell on deaf ears for the 15th year in a row. He was obviously going through something, but it was the first time he stopped family from crossing boundaries, and he said he wished he had learned it sooner. Whoa, yeah, the singing of happy birthday kind of gets really awkward the older you get. Story 14. Doing manual labor, retail, or food service work while the boss is watching. Whether you care about your job or not, I swear, dropped objects, inability to find stock, or just plain looking stupid jumped 200% if the boss was looking. Same with typing if anyone is watching you in an office environment. My boss likes to sneak up behind me and say, "So, do you know what you're doing?" He thinks it's freaking hilarious. I've named my stomach ulcer after him. Story 15. Trying to find your car when you lost it in a parking lot. I drove to a light rail station and took it to a concert in San Francisco. I came back to the wrong station parking lot and looked everywhere for my car. I figured somebody stole it. I called the cops. They came and helped me look for it. Another cop phoned in and said he found it at the next station. I was so embarrassed. As if that wasn't enough, I once went shopping at the mall, and when I was done, I couldn't even remember which side of the mall I'd parked on. That was fun. Someone gave me a tip, and I've been doing it since. Just walk really far to park in the back. If it isn't empty, park in the farthest away spot so it's an easy search. Like, dude, ever heard of an AirTag? I'm sure you'll never lose your car again. Story 16. Hospital gown with bare bottom. The funny thing is that it's essential because they might need quick access. I had surgery where they realized things were going to take longer than expected, and they catheterized me. I didn't expect that upon waking up. And not only might they have to put the catheter in, but they will also likely need to put a grounding pad on your thigh. Story 17. Running with a backpack on. This was me last night, but it was at least my hiking pack with the waist and chest straps to help keep it in place. The dog I was walking got freaked out by the fireworks and went into flight mode. I finally got him calm enough to just speed walk when a train crossing we just passed came down and the dinging started. I freaked the poor guy out more and we just ended up running the rest of the way home. However, if you've ever been in Washington, D.C. for the Marine Corps, there are always 20 to 30 Marines running it with full 40-pound packs on. It's pretty impressive. Even more impressive is watching vets who lost limbs run the marathon. Story 18. TikTok dances. It's when people just mouth the words to a movie or TV scene and try to act it out in their living room. This is hugely popular for some reason. Also, when I was teaching high school health and PE, I fought the TikTok dancing so much just being an old person. When I stopped them from dancing, none of them wanted to participate, so I caved and let them do their silly TikTok dances, albeit with appropriate music. They had fun, burned calories, and used dance as exercise, and other kids joined in sometimes for fun. At the end of the day, I was cool with it, because who am I to say you have to exercise and burn calories with just these sports? Go dance. Now, the really funny bit is watching people record them in real life. The finished videos with audio can be entertaining to watch, but there's nothing quite as hilarious as watching someone record a TikTok out of context with no audio in public on a random street, hiking trail, or some business. It really makes you realize how dumb most of those dances are. Story 19. Walking and talking on your phone without earphones. I work in a small boutique, and sometimes people walk in and I'll greet them, and they look at me like I'm an idiot for interrupting and point to their tiny earbuds and continue with their phone conversation. Then I awkwardly have to sit there while they walk around a few feet away from me. It just looks funny to me when someone is ranting and you don't see a phone in their ear. They are talking to themselves and gesturing, and then you realize they are on the phone. It's comical to me. That's all. Story 20. Vaping. I quit smoking 6 years ago and decided vaping was the healthier alternative, but what I didn't realize was how ridiculously dumb I looked doing it. An ex girlfriend tried telling me, but I didn't decide to stop until a few years ago. I played golf with my friend on Saturday, and he had this ridiculously large handheld vape clutched in his hand. 80% of the time, he wasn't swinging a club, and it suddenly hit me how dumb he looked while doing it, and thought to myself, wow, I can't believe I used to walk around with one of these things looking like a tool. All I see now are undisciplined people getting into their strawberry kiwi vape like their lives depend on it. Story 21. Eating. People just shove whatever into their faces and munch on it until they can force it into their bodies. It will never not look weird. As a kid, I read an article about paparazzi. At the end of it, the reporter asked one of them, "Is there any situation where you would not take a picture?" The paparazzi was talking to thought about it a bit and said, "Eating. Never take a picture of anyone eating. Everyone looks bad when they're eating. Photographing them like that is just disgusting." A couple of months later, I picked up a copy of the Toronto Goat and Snail, aka Canada's national newspaper. The front page, above the fold, is a picture of a politician eating. It looks awkward. More specifically, eating ice cream. I know there might be some ways to look alluring or something I don't know, but every time my husband and I see people eating an ice cream cone, no spoon, just licking it, they look ridiculous. We giggle. There's just no dignified way to do this. I also once saw my local congressman on a sidewalk outside the movie theater, totally alone, licking an ice cream cone. I could never take him seriously again. I just know I'll never be caught dead licking an ice cream cone in public. Same goes for joining an eating contest where you can't use your hands. Story 22. Walking back to the bench after you bowl or bowling in general. I don't like it because I feel like I look like an idiot the entire time. Where do you look? Do you watch the ball while walking backward or turn around and walk back without watching? Such an awkward experience. I was in a bowling league as a kid, but now as an adult, it is so uncomfortable, especially when it's just you and one other, a date for example, and they have no choice but to watch you. The worst part is that I always do some kind of purposely awkward dance back to the bowl bench because of this. And I do a side shuffle with those stupid bowl shoes because they're so slippery, and I give finger guns and winks even if I hit a gutter ball. Can't get enough of hearing about others' dumb moments? Then go watch What's Your This Person Is on Another Level of Stupid story. Story 4 is hilarious. See you there.